Hi, everybody, and welcome to this SPK Associates vlog entitled The Top 5 Pitfalls to Avoid When Moving Off Windchill RV&S. My name is Michael Roberts. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at SPK Associates, and today we're talking about a topic that's coming up more and more with engineering and product teams. What to watch out for when moving off of Windchill RV&S. Many organizations are reaching a point where they're evaluating more modern tools, consolidating, or shifting to more open source or more modern platforms to better support the teams that are doing development and compliance today. But these transitions aren't really simple, and there's a lot of risks, and those risks are very real. To help unpack this, I'm joined by one of my colleagues, Colin Doyle, Senior Process Architect at SPK Associates. Colin, thanks for being here, and please introduce yourself.
Hi there, folks. I'm Colin Doyle. As Michael says, I'm a senior process architect here at SPK, and I've worked with numerous clients on both RV&S and Codebeamer, as well as other tools.
So, Colin, you've seen a lot of technology over the years, and before we get going, I want you to share a little bit of your background with the audience so that they can have context of where you've come from and the things you've been involved in. So, can you give a little bit more context?
Sure, sure. I have over 3 decades of experience working with application lifecycle management tools. For 10 of those years, I was the senior product manager of Windchill RV&S, which was originally known as MKS Integrity. Um, and I've also an expert in Codebeamer. I've worked with most of the other major tools, such as Jira, such as Perforce, such as Doors. Um, for people who remember, ClearQuest and ClearCase. So I've seen them all.
A lot of experience here. So, because of that, Colin has gotten thrust into some very different types of migration strategies. So I'm happy to have him here today to walk through some of these potential pitfalls. So when teams are trying to replicate their RVNS setup, exactly in a new tool, what that approach can be a problem, Colin. So tell me about why that can be a problem, especially around the component of source control.
Absolutely. Well, every tool has a different approach, a different feature set. So there's always going to be a bit of a mismatch when you go from one tool to another. With RVNS, source integrity, their source control component, was designed to be a very sophisticated and powerful configuration management tool. So, unlike a lot of version control tools, and Git is essentially a version control tool, um, which is a common tool that people migrate from RVNS to. Source has a couple of features that are fairly unique to it. One is that in addition to the top level project, every folder inside of a source integrity project can be its own project. It can be shared across other projects. It can be branched independently of other projects inside that hierarchy. And you can even do things like reconfigure the branch that a given sub project is on. All of those are features that are fairly unique to RVNS. So when you're migrating to, say, something like Git, you need to consider how you're going to map that functionality, assuming that you've made use of it, onto the functionality that Git provides. So on the idea of shared subprojects or subprojects in general, Git has this concept of a shared module. So there's one way that we could possibly map it. But on other aspects, like being able to reconfigure different subprojects onto different branches, Git doesn't have an equivalent to that. So one of the things that needs to be decided is, you know, do you want to proliferate projects so that you get different branches in different projects, or do you want to, homogenize things? And we've worked with a number of clients to help them make those decisions, so that their move forward is as smooth as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of complexity there, which is kind of leading me to my next question. So, what are the likely areas of friction or impedance mismatch between RVNS and another more modern tool?
Yep. Well, a couple of them might be on the workflows and documents side. RVNS has a full document model. So what I mean by that is that within a given project, I can have multiple instances of the same document type. So it's not just that an item type represents a document and all the items are the content of the document. I can actually have more than one instance of that document. It has a different item that represents its container or cover page. So I can have different fields for that, cover page container. Um, and I can I can share documents into other documents. So these are features that are fairly unique to RV&S. So again, similar to the source thing, we need to think about, how are we going to migrate that? Case in point in Codebeamer. Codebeamer's big strength relative to RV&S is it's a more modern UI. It's entirely web-based. However, it's got document views. It doesn't have first-class documents. So one of the things we need to consider if you've got multiple instances of the same document type, do we create multiple projects to capture those instances and work in a hierarchy of projects in Codebeamer? Or do we want to create multiple trackers that represent the different instances? Both of those approaches can be valid. It all depends on your context.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like with this question, I'm going to open up even bigger part of Pandora's box because I feel like those first two are pretty big. But in a lot of the companies that are using RV&S today, they're highly regulated medical device. And traceability is usually one of the bigger concerns, especially, in those highly regulated areas. So where do migrations tend to go wrong when it comes to preserving history? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean that's actually a very interesting question because one of the first things you need to decide in your migration is, do you need history? My personal experience is the vast majority of our clients decide that they can keep their old system read only, or they'll archive history and they just want the new tool to start with the latest and greatest. That simplifies migration considerably. But if you do need history, then you need to think about, how are you going to bring that history over? So, for instance, on the source side, um, you've got change packages and you've got checkpoints. And you can think of it kind of like a banking analogy. One is your banking statement, one's your cash flow. So for some organizations that have been very intensive users of change packages, they like to reproduce that commit history as commits in the new system. That is a very complex strategy to perform. Speaking from personal experience on this, most people, when they do bring history over, they just take the checkpoints and they produce new baselines in the new tool. Similarly, with the documents in Integrity, we can bring over, baselines of those documents. The challenge is that you need to recreate the traces when you're creating those. So you basically bring a baseline over, build its traces. Bring a new baseline over, update those traces. And between each one of those steps, you need to verify that you've done it right. So in our experience, what we usually have is we've got a test suite that we've built to go along with the scripts that are doing the migration so that as each baseline is brought over and the trace is updated, we're verifying that things are right because going back and fixing history is not an option in most tools.
Yeah, the level of complexity that preserving the history can entail usually changes the direction of those migrations. So yeah, important area to consider. So last area, Colin, that I have for you. So what are you would say that maybe things that we haven't talked about today? What are the main things to consider for a team that's planning on moving off of Windchill RV&S maybe in the next year? What are the main things you would consider?
Yeah. I'd say there's a couple of things. One is um, think about the reasons why you're moving off of RV&S. I mean, if you're looking to move to a web-based solution and RV&S is not really fully web-enabled, that's totally understandable. But if the reason why you're moving off is some parts of the solution are no longer, fit for purpose, then migrating the solution as is into your new tool is going to just continue that problem. So it can be a challenge. It's also an opportunity because this migration is an opportunity to revisit the solution, figure out what you want to keep, what you want to change, because now's the time to do it. The other aspect that a lot of organizations don't consider is training their users on what the new system's going to be like. Everyone is used to working in RV&S. And when they go to the new tool, instinctively they're going to want it to behave like RV&S, but it's not going to. So training people so that, they're set up for success is very important.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
There's a lot to consider here. Colin, again, thank you for your experience and for your insight here. I think just understanding the potential risk area is incredibly valuable. So thanks for your time.
No, you're welcome.
So as we've talked about, moving off of Windchill RV&S, it's a big step, and there's a lot of components that come into it: thoughtful planning, the right strategy, and a focus on what that long-term adoption, not just the migration itself, will look like. So if you're watching and your organization is considering a move like this in the next year, come chat with our team, whether it's a discovery and migration planning or new implementation of a new platform and ongoing application management. Colin and our team of experts can actually help you get to that desired end state. If you'd like to continue the conversation or explore what a migration would look like for this environment, feel free to reach out to us on our SPK and Associates socials or on our website. We'd be happy to help. Thanks everyone for joining us and watching today, and until next time.